Part 43. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 421. Luzaoki frowned and looked at the series of special dishes that were served, and suddenly looked unhappy and said, "Can't you serve me something hot? Who wouldn't have diarrhea after eating these things?" Except for a few desserts and fried foods, almost all of the items on the table now were various sashimi, and the like. In fact, with Lu's physique, let alone a cold dish, even if you feed him 2 kilograms of AA batteries, it will be nothing. But for some reason, Luzaoki felt uncomfortable smelling this smell, so her words were not so polite. The emperor, who had a bruised nose and face, also trembled slightly when he heard this. Could he not tremble? After all, those people just turned into ashes under his nose, bowed respectfully and replied, "I'm very sorry. Make arrangements immediately." Wang Yanran twisted a piece of sashimi and put it in the bowl, then coughed, turned sideways and explained to Luzaoki in a low voice. This is indeed Luzaoki's misunderstanding. It turns out that the banquet process here in Fuzhou is similar to that in China. At the beginning of the banquet, there are pre-dinner desserts and cold dishes as appetizers, followed by hot dishes and soups, then the main dishes, and finally the dessert, fruit. The food Luzaoki saw now was just an appetizer. This group of people originally thought that this time they would be hosting a banquet for the most distinguished person in the world, Sun Yao adventurer, so they used the most advanced process in Fuzhou, but instead they were disliked by Luzaoki. Too cumbersome. Too much trouble. I just want to have a quick meal and then settle the scores with you. It turns out that after a long time, you are still planning foreplay? Of course, this is just what Luzaoki thinks. After hearing Wang Yanran's explanation, Luzaoki blushed, and then realized that she had made a mistake. But who is Lu? The main thing is to know a mistake but not correct it? He said stubbornly, "Huh? How could I not know? But I, Mr. Lu, like to eat hot food. I feel sick all over after eating something so cold." Wang Yanran rolled her eyes at him and said nothing. Her purpose is naturally not to help these Fuzhou people speak out. Because this process is actually customized by oneself in a strict sense. Yes, the Dragon Kingdom has sent people to take over everything in Fuzhang. How could this banquet only include the rich and powerful of Fuzhang? It was said that the emperor organized the banquet, but in fact it was the banquet held by the relevant departments of the Dragon Kingdom in his name. Its purpose is also simple. Firstly, it is indeed a celebration. Secondly, it is also to show force and beat these guys who have other little ideas. Unexpectedly, Luzaoki was a little stunned. She overfulfilled the task of beating up the rich and powerful in Fuzhou. Unexpectedly, she almost overturned the table. It means not giving face to the relevant departments of Longguo. That's why Wang Yanran warned her, but her words were a little vague. Luzaoki understood what she meant immediately. But who is Luzaoki? That is the famous iron-headed boy. I saw him looking around, and all the Fuzhou people who were swept by his piercing gaze were frightened and lowered their heads involuntarily. The atmosphere was very solemn. No one dared to move their chopsticks. Luzaoki slowly picked up a chopstick, broke it off with his backhand, then threw away the 2 broken chopsticks, took out a handful from the chopstick basket on the side with his backhand, and asked calmly, "Do you know what I am doing? What does this mean?" When he asked this question, all the Fuzhou people felt their hearts skip a beat, knowing that his powerful move was coming again. Only the people from the Dragon Kingdom who were present had their eyes lit up, and they thought to themselves, "I know this well. I understand." Lu Rieo's hint was too obvious. So someone immediately said with a smile, "This is a famous illusion from the Dragon Kingdom. A chopstick is very easy to break, but a pair of chopsticks is difficult to break. Master Lu is educating us on the power of unity." Now that Fuzhang province is an inseparable part of the Dragon Kingdom, everyone should work together as brothers to defeat Gold. Wrong. Before he finished speaking, he was coldly interrupted by Lu Zioqi. Lu Zioqi's hands were slightly raised, and all the chopsticks in his hands were crackling. Then he used his magic power to turn all the broken chopsticks into fly ash, and then said slowly, I mean. He looked at the people sitting at the banquet who had different thoughts. Even if you are put together, you can't defeat me. Lu Zioqi, he pointed at his eyes with his index and middle fingers, then waved his hand and scanned everyone present with his index and middle fingers, and said word by word, I will always look at you. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the whole room suddenly became tense. The person who spoke before had a red face and could only sit back in his seat silently, drinking water to cover up his embarrassment. Fuzhou people. Longguo people. Wang Yanran, 6. Good guy, you are really going to offend them to death. But Lu Zioqi didn't care. Because at this banquet, he had seen too many dirty things in his eyes, and he wanted to wash his eyes immediately. And what I mean by this is undoubtedly a reminder to those guys who have been somewhat corrupted by something. Mr. Lu, don't care whether you are from Fuzhang or Longguo. If you fall into my hands, the word death will be written in capital letters. After the emperor gave the order, steaming hot food was served soon. As for their hot dishes, except that they imitated the food from the Dragon Kingdom partly to take care of the fact that Lu Zioqi was from the Dragon Kingdom, there was only a small barbecue that could catch Lu Zioqi's eyes. It was sliced Wagyu beef and pork belly. After being grilled, they were dipped in sweet sauce and served respectfully in front of Lu Zioqi. Steaming hot and fragrant. As for other things, such as shrimp custard, oden cooking, etc., Lu was not interested in them. Although the dishes were served, everyone just watched eagerly. But after what happened just now, Lu Zioqi didn't speak, and no one dared to move their chopsticks. So he had no choice but to pick up the chopsticks that were brought to him by the maid on the side, picked up a piece of barbecue first, and said, What are you looking at? Eat. As soon as these words came out, the originally solemn atmosphere suddenly relaxed, and the atmosphere was barely lively. Wang Yanran also picked up a prawn with a pair of pliers and stuffed it into Lu Zioqi's bowl, and said angrily, Eat more, please. Even such big shrimp claws can't hold your mouth. But Lu Zioqi put it into Wang Yanran's bowl with a look of disgust and said, No. I don't dare to eat seafood. I'm afraid they will mutate after eating them. Lu Zioqi paused. Even if I don't mutate, I'm afraid their relatives and friends will mutate and come to take revenge on me. Wang Yanran? Then Lu Zioqi took another skewer of pork belly and handed it to Wang Yanran, saying, You should eat more. As he spoke, he glanced at someone's broad mind and said faintly, They've all lost weight. Wang Yanran? Damn it, I'm giving you face. Right. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 422. But no matter what, this nightmare copy incident officially came to an end with this banquet. Lu wanted to take advantage of the dark and windy night to secretly teach a country that didn't know what to do. For example, stage an alternative 9-stick incident, cutting off a corner of its 5-corner building, or replace the thing held by a certain goddess statue with a sickle. Lollipop? Or should we just leave it naked? But eventually gave up. Because he was an unknown teacher. Although he knew who was causing the trouble, no one would be stupid enough to admit it. If he takes action without authorization, he will only bring trouble to his own Dragon Kingdom. Even his own people in the Dragon Kingdom would not understand him. Just like this time, after some of his behavior in Fuzhou spread back to China, many people secretly labeled him as moody, and some bad remarks began to appear. Although Mr. Lu said that he was very generous and didn't care at all, he couldn't help but was so angry that he showed off 2 more bowls of rice in the evening. Of course, some expressed support. There are also some fans who support him without thinking. But he knew that these people didn't understand him at all. All they cared about was his appearance. Hey, who makes him so outstanding? Maybe this is the loneliness of being in the cold at high places. Then his pretentious posture won the eyes of all the women in the Pure Land. Oh, one more thing worth mentioning. Although the Godzilla was killed by him, an egg exploded out. There is no doubt that this egg will hatch into a brand new Godzilla. After it was brought back to the Pure Land of Paradise by Lu Zhaoqi, it was spotted by Heitantu, who had been following Lu Wanyi wagging his tail. I don't know how maternal love overflowed in its young heart, and it had to hatch this Godzilla egg on its own. It even found a nest after the Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss as its new home. I have to say that this little female dragon really has no taste. Even with such a big place, it turned out to be as messy as a doghouse, filled with shiny gadgets it had collected from all over the place. Including but not limited to glass beads, discarded magic crystal cores, and even some waste materials left behind when they were building the Pure Land of Paradise. All of them were taken back to his dragon's nest by Black Carbon Head as if they were treasures, and piled next to the Godzilla eggs. This made Mr. Lu extremely speechless. But no matter how you correct her, she will just not obey you. If you don't let her do this, she will act like a fool. He looked like a naughty child whose toy had been snatched away. Even if someone from Lu gave him a severe lesson, it would be useless. In addition, its mistress, Lu Wanyi, really loves it and always protects this guy. Lu Zhaoqi simply turned a blind eye and ignored it. But the biggest gain from this release is not the Godzilla egg, but a star core. Because the real boss of this nightmare copy is not that Godzilla, but the planetary will of this planet. In other words, Lu Zhaoqi's victory was not as easy as everyone imagined. He only cleared this dungeon by seriously annihilating a planet. He could never forget how the whole world suddenly changed color after he easily defeated Godzilla. The real world is spinning and the seas are collapsing and the mountains are being destroyed. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes sweep through, and the color of the world changes. From this series of natural disasters, Lu Zhaoqi could clearly feel that a will that was so strong that it made him tremble was slowly awakening. But this will is extremely painful. Because it is pathological. Is on the verge of death. It's like a terminal cancer patient, lying helpless on the hospital bed, only moaning. The radiation is eroding its body like a disease. From the initial resistance to the reluctant adaptation later, the fit. It has paid so much for this. These are the ideas transmitted to him by the will of the planet. This process may take tens of millions of years. After all, if I don't kill it, I probably won't be able to get this copy. Now, due to the intervention of a certain mastermind behind the scenes, it has not only mutated physically, but also mutated its will. This time, he made an exception and took action, albeit with the help of Lu Zhaoqi's body, which also shows that the star core is indeed a very important thing. The outcome of the incident was quite tragic. But after a moment of silence, Lu Zhaoqi agreed. Sadly, it's only half the battle. Because this is the territory of a certain gangster, Digi's appearance will undoubtedly expose herself. Just in case, she has been hiding and never showing up. The cause of the incident was that some extremely selfish guys began to harm others and not benefit themselves. So it looks like this now. It's so painful to live. She gathered some mysterious power together to form a star core. After giving it to Lu Zhaoqi, she told him that this thing was very helpful to him now, saying that it was crucial to the growth of the Pure Land of Paradise. This thing is eating away at it, trying to turn it into a kind of puppet. In fact, when Lu Zhaoqi downloaded a copy before, it was impossible for Digi to show up and take action. Lu Zhaoqi didn't know why she was so sure of herself. Because he felt that the situation on this planet was similar to the small broken ball he was in his previous life. Therefore, Luzioki, who took back the star core, was also confused and could only take it back to the pure land of paradise and place it temporarily. So taking advantage of the only time it had to wake up, it went to Luzioki, told him all this, and begged him to give it a good time. But she didn't explain it clearly to Luzioki. After hastily taking action, she just said a few words to Luzioki and then fell completely silent. This nightmare copy completely collapsed because of this. At this moment, Luzioki received an extremely large amount of information. In order to survive, the will of the planet destroyed all living things on the planet, and made renewed efforts to evolve new species that can adapt to and improve the environment. What's even more terrifying is that something else is actually born on its body. It saw something different in Luzioki, and firmly believed that he was its only salvation. A vivid example is, a schizophrenic terminal cancer patient was hypnotized into multiple personalities. There is a feeling of sympathy for each other, and the sadness of the rabbit's death and the fox's sorrow. This is the second dungeon that fell into the hands of someone in Lu after the Holy Garden dungeon. Actually it was the third one. The first one was Digi, but he doesn't know yet. So it doesn't want to live anymore. Even though it has transformed into another form, all this continues to torture it. While enduring the pain, on the other hand, we have to work hard to adapt to it, and even deepen the integration between it and ourselves. After the planet was completely destroyed, Digi, who had been hiding in Luzioki's body, suddenly took action with the help of Lu's body. So with the cooperation of the planet's will itself, Luzioki accumulated a powerful enough Jianlan to completely destroy this dilapidated world in one fell swoop. After Luzioki absorbed this part of the information, her mood was extremely complicated. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 423. So where's my big lump of star core? Luzioki's high, unbelievable voice broke the usual tranquility of the pure land of paradise. The huge warehouse has been turned upside down by him, but the big treasure he just brought back yesterday has disappeared without a trace. The cute foodie on the side squatted down with his head in his hands and shivered. Luzioki's face looked uncertain, and she didn't know what she was thinking. You must know that this is in the pure land of ultimate bliss. Without his permission, it is impossible for anyone to enter this warehouse located in the city lord's mansion. There is one exception. That was the innocent-looking elf next to him. As the spirit of the city, it certainly has the right to freely enter and exit the warehouse. It was even said that Luzioki often filled the warehouse with divine fragments because she found it troublesome, so that the little guy would go to the warehouse to get food by himself when he was hungry. He suddenly locked his eyes on the cute foodie and asked loudly, "Where is my ball?" The elf shuddered when he heard this and muttered, "No, I don't know anything. What's the use of you?" Luzioki rolled her eyes. But he also knew that he couldn't blame it. After all, the disappearance of the star core could be hidden from his own perception. Being the lord of the pure land of ultimate bliss is a rather bizarre thing. But what he was more curious about was, who could take this thing away from the warehouse without leaving a trace. Luzioki called everyone over and asked them. As expected, everyone looked at a loss. This is strange. Could it be that it became a spirit on its own and ran away with its legs spread wide? It's not easy to figure this out. Seeing his confused look, Wang Yanran couldn't help but snorted, raised her hand and shot out a light that formed a light curtain on the wall of the warehouse. This is a time travel method that allows people to see clearly what happened here last night, Wang Yanran explained. Of course, the premise is that no one interferes. While talking, the light curtain on the wall began to change, and then the original appearance of the warehouse appeared. The light was dim and you could tell it was night. Luzioki stopped talking and immediately fixed his gaze on the spherical object emitting golden light in the middle of the warehouse. That is the protagonist of this incident, Starcore. Its size is somewhere between a basketball and a football. Yes, wandering. Because its shape is not fixed and changes at any time, and this change has no rules at all. Luzioki once tried to put it in the parcel slot, but unfortunately, it was not considered a prop and could not be put in it. At this moment, the Starcore in the light curtain was lying quietly on the shelf in the center of the warehouse, motionless. A long time passed without any incident. Seeing this, Wang Yanran waved her hand, and the images in the light curtain began to play faster as if pressing fast forward. It took about 2 minutes for the picture in the light curtain to change again. A bright light came in. Obviously, someone pushed open the warehouse door. "Slow down," Luzioki warned. Wang Yanran did as she was told. A figure appeared in the light. Wang Yanran waved her hand and turned the picture in the light screen, and Luzioki could clearly see the figure standing at the door. "It's this little guy who is a cute foodie." The two people immediately focused their attention on the confused elf. Their eyes, as if they were real, fell on its weak, helpless, pitiful but edible body, making it tremble. "We'll see if she did it." Wang Yanran said this, and Luzioki turned her attention back to the light screen. The elf's movements were a little shaky. Luzioki raised her eyebrows, pointed at the cute foodie in the picture and said, "Can you give it a close-up?" Wang Yanran nodded and waved his hand, and the picture in the light screen suddenly enlarged several times. Only now did the two of them see the elf clearly. This guy's eyes are actually closed. It was still holding its stomach with one hand, drooling from the corner of its mouth, and staggered into the warehouse. Its nose kept twitching, and its nostrils opened and closed. It was as if he was smelling something. The little guy looked at the picture in the light screen, his mouth wide open in disbelief. Ouch! Unexpectedly, it did not bite the Starcore. Instead, it seemed to activate a certain function of the Starcore, making its internal structure begin to become unstable, and the golden color emitted the light also flickers on and off. Compared with 669, the treatment of the elf is light. In a strict sense, it is clearly 007. This guy wouldn't show off the Starcore as a dessert, would he? The elf seemed to have bruised his teeth after taking this bite. Hey, Ge Lan, wake up. The Starcore seems to have disappeared. What should we do now? Then he wandered out of the warehouse. And the Starcore that was randomly thrown on the ground shattered into pieces shortly after it left, turning into bright golden light that spread out. It is estimated that even it itself does not know that it did such an outrageous thing last night. And the culprit behind all this is that cute foodie with an innocent and pitiful face. It smells so good. But he was relieved in his heart. After Luzioki dismissed everyone, she silently initiated a VX call in her heart. Suddenly its movements stopped, and its nose twitched, as if it smelled something different. It couldn't help but put down the things in its hands, and then walk towards the shelf holding the Starcores. Is this little guy sleepwalking? The black-hearted capitalists in mainland China have completely forgotten that they are squeezing the labor force. Once you know the reason, the result is not very important. The scene in the light curtain continues. It turns out that the Starcore was not stolen but disappeared. This golden light sneaked into the entire Pure Land of ultimate bliss and disappeared without a trace. The scene in the light screen has already progressed to the point where the cute foodie is holding up the huge Starcore, which is a bit bigger than other people. This little guy was originally about the size of Thumbelina. Because he eats and drinks well with Luzioki, he has grown up a lot, and took a bite. At this point, the truth is finally revealed. It put down the Starcore, rubbed its mouth in a daze, seemed to open its eyes, glanced around, and muttered strangely, "Why am I here?" Luzioki was both angry and funny. In the end, She could only blame this silly and cute little guy and said angrily, "Look at the good things you did." Seeing this, Luzaoki suddenly looked at the cute foodie with a strange expression. What he was afraid of was that situations would arise in this absolute realm that he controlled that he was completely unaware of. Tisk, tisk, what a miserable word. Then this is quite fatal. Luzaoki looked at the pitiful cute foodie huddled in the corner, a little speechless, and looked at Wang Yanran. It is indeed this little guy. It's strange. I didn't treat it badly. As for sleepwalking, do you still want to come out to steal food this night? Case solved. It grabbed divine fragments with its left hand and right hand and ate them, murmuring incessantly. During the day, several people dragged him around to do city planning, and at night he had to convert the divine fragments he had eaten into the power of the divine to upgrade Luzaoki's pure land of paradise. I saw the cute foodie walking to where Luzaoki was stacking divine fragments, then fluttering his little wings and diving in. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 424. Cold Salad. Ge Ian's voice was as cold and aloof as ever. She didn't explain anything in detail, she just said slowly, "Just let nature take its course." Luzaoki. He thought about it for a moment and then came back to his senses. "So, all this is actually what you expected, right?" Ge Lan. She didn't reply and fell into silence, as if she didn't want to talk to Lu at all. But Luzaoki rolled her eyes and complained, You, let's just say, can't you explain these things to us in advance? It makes me nervous, it's really. Given our relationship, is there anything we can't be honest with each other about? Ge Lan. This person is so annoying. But Luzaoki became more energetic. He kept chattering, "By the way, are you afraid of society? I have been with you for so long and I have never come out to meet them. What's the point? Look at this pure land, most of them are girls, so there's nothing to be shy about. Ge Lan, get out." Luzaoki, okay. After a moment of silence, Luzaoki couldn't help but ask, "The star core disappeared in my city, will there be any changes next?" Ge Lan said, "You will know soon." After saying that, she disappeared completely and no longer responded no matter how much Luzaoki called. Low EQ, stop talking. Experience it with your heart. High EQ, the author hasn't thought about it yet, I'll edit it next time. Okay, Luzaoki clicked his tongue. When he couldn't get an answer, he stopped worrying about the matter and threw it behind him in the blink of an eye. As for the elf who made a mistake, he was naturally punished hardly by him. Well, just give it one day to digest all the piles of divine fragments in the warehouse. Cute foodie, is there such a good thing? This is the first time in my life that I have heard of such punishment. Hope to have more next time. But it turns out that this little guy is still too young. In fact, sometimes it is quite painful to eat too much. For now, let's put aside the worry of being such a cute foodie and having so much to eat. Let's fast forward to Luzaoki, who suddenly received a long-lost phone call after returning to the imperial capital. There was an old voice on the other end of the phone, sighing, "Long time no see, little friend Lu." "Oh no, it should be called Lu Rieo now." Luzaoki chuckled and said, "Hey, don't be so outspoken, Mr. Wang. It's not sunny, that's all." Luzaoki said this in an understatement. For him, even at the golden core level, it was difficult to find an opponent. After being promoted to the Yuan Shen level, he could overwhelm the others and feel overwhelmed by the cold. No matter what level of enemy he faces, he only needs to put his hands in his pockets and make a casual move, which is the limit of this world. So what he said was very true. As for the sun and the sun, that's all that matters to him. But the invisible cup is the most deadly. This sounds like a completely different feeling to others. For example, General Wang was speechless and choked for a while. He has been stuck in the moonlight realm for decades, longing to enter the sunlight realm but unable to do so. But in Lu Xiaoqi's words, the sun seemed to be so cheap that it was worthless. Naturally, his mood was complicated and difficult to describe. After the two briefly exchanged greetings, General Wang finally changed his tone and got to the point. "Little friend Lu, do you still remember what I told you back then?" Lu Xiaoqi thought for a moment and remembered what Mr. Wang said after the monster siege incident. "You mean, let me contact you after reaching the Sun Yao realm?" Mr. Wang sighed heavily. "Yes, I have been holding the secret in my heart for more than 10 years. Now that it has happened, I can finally let it out." Lu Xiaoqi raised her eyebrows, wondering what the secret in Mr. Wang's mouth was. He was about to ask. "Just listen to Mr. Wang say, by the way, don't blame me as an old man for asking presumptuously. How would it be if Lu Rieo's combat power is to clear a nightmare dungeon?" Lu Xiaoqi said confidently, "It's as easy as flipping a finger." Mr. Wang heard that his tone was relaxed and did not seem to be hypocritical. He remembered that this boy had just cleared Fuzu's nightmare copy not long ago, and coupled with the heaven-defying combat power displayed at the Yuehui level, he himself couldn't help but let out a breath, and then asked, "Then, what if it is the initial copy of Nightmare? A copy above the level of Nightmare?" Lu Xiaoqi was stunned for a moment, thinking of Fuzang's incomparably huge planetary will. After a moment of silence, he replied, "You may need to be more cautious about this." Then he continued, "If you are more serious, you can also split it 50-50. 50-50, Mr. Wang didn't quite understand what it meant. Lu Xiaoqi explained, "I hit him with 50% force until he fell apart and split open, which is called 50-50 for short." Mr. Wang. What a 50-50th split. But hearing his confident words, he couldn't have the slightest doubt. After all, this guy is a guy who can clear the nightmare dungeon at Yuhui level. It simply cannot be measured by common sense. So after a long silence, he said leisurely, "That's good. Now that things have happened, I won't hide this matter from you. In fact, your parents are still alive." Lu Xiaoqi. What the hell? Are you also sent by the Ye family? Lu Xiaoqi was stunned for a moment, and then immediately realized that he should be talking about his adoptive parents. So he stood up immediately and asked in a trembling voice, Are you saying that my parents, Lu Zheng and Lu Xianxian, are not dead?" Crack! There was a sound of porcelain falling to the ground and breaking. Lu Xiaoqi looked back and saw Lu Wanyi standing blankly behind. And the voice of General Wang continued to be heard on the phone, "That's right. They have been trapped in the copy above the nightmare, waiting for someone to rescue. This kind of copy is completely beyond the nightmare level, and we have given it a brand new name. It's called a copy of hell. This branch has been buried for too long, and I am just digging it out to fill in. After all, the novel is nearing the end. If you still don't understand anything, you can ask it, and I will see how to round it out later. Ahem, I mean how to explain it. Yes, it's an explanation, seriously. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 425. As we all know, initial copies have no limits, or their limits have not yet been discovered. It will continue to get stronger as time goes by. The initial copy of the nightmare level already requires the cooperation of Sun Yao adventurers to solve it. And what if there is a copy in an inaccessible place that has never been discovered and stopped in time, and it continues to develop, and develop again? The answer is to continue to expand until all the monsters in the copy awaken, and then break through the barriers of the world and appear in reality. Z001 is such a copy. The difficulty of such a copy is called Hell level. The emergence of such copies is undoubtedly an extreme disaster for the surrounding humans. Even if it accidentally destroys the country, It can only destroy the country in an instant. If you give it a certain amount of time, it can swallow the entire world. So far, only this hell-level copy has been discovered in the world. That battle was undoubtedly quite tragic. Almost all adventurers from the mid-moonlight stage and above from all over the world participated in that battle. The constant stream of monsters rushing out of the cracks can almost make everyone despair. The Lord Monster is so powerful that it can instantly kill a group of Uehui-level adventurers with just a look. Even the high-ranking Sunshine adventurers in the past were like dolls in its hands. In the end, several Sun Yaos worked together and used their unique skills to briefly knock this Lord Monster back into the dungeon. Oh, it's worth mentioning. In this battle, the aristocratic family also participated. After all, the lips are dead and the teeth are cold. At the end of the matter, a young couple stood up and entered the dungeon without hesitation, sealing the dungeon forever with their young lives. That's right, the couple who saved the world were Lu Xiaoqi's adoptive parents, Lu Zheng and Lu Xianxian. After listening to Mr. Wang's eloquent explanation of what happened, Lu Xiaoqi was silent for a long time and then smiled. You mean to tell me that my parents are heroes and one saved the world? Mr. Wang heard that Lu Xiaoqi's tone was a bit strange, but he still suppressed his inner uneasiness and said solemnly, in a sense, it is indeed true. Then, logically speaking, shouldn't the children of heroes enjoy the highest honors and pensions? Lu Xiaoqi's voice became louder. What have you been doing these past 10 years? The descendants of the Savior have become so poor that they can hardly survive, and you actually just watch. Indifferent. If my awakening talent hadn't passed the adventurer's test, my sister and I might have ended up living on the streets one day and ended up in despair. Is this how you should treat a hero? Lu Xiaoqi's tone was indifferent but filled with boundless anger. He always thought that the story of a certain foxboy was just the product of a certain guy's imagination, but he never expected that such a thing would actually happen around him. No, to be precise, it happened to me. He said self-deprecatingly, I don't know if parents will not hesitate to seal the so-called copy of hell after knowing that their children have been treated like this. When Lu Wanyi heard what he said, she couldn't help but come over and hug him, silently shedding tears. Lu Xiaoqi held Lu Wanyi's hand tightly to express comfort. Mr. Wang was also speechless for a moment, and after a long silence he said, Little friend Lu, I can understand your mood at the moment, but you have to know that the country also has its own reasons for doing this. In order to prevent a gap between Lu Xiaoqi and the country, he quickly explained, the main reason is that the identities of Lu Zheng and Lu Xianxian are too special. Lu Xiaoqi said nothing and listened to him with a sneer. He wanted to see how Mr. Wang would behave. You know, more than 20 years ago, your parents were just ordinary people. They were just an ordinary couple at the time. Lu Xiaoqi. But I didn't expect that after getting married, I would suddenly make a leap from an ordinary person to a peak moonlight powerhouse comparable to the sun. Lu Xiaoqi. It has awakened an extremely powerful innate ability. Lu Xiaoqi. Are you kidding me? He lowered his head and glanced at his sister, both of them had confused looks in their eyes. This incident shocked almost the whole world. Everyone is curious to know the reason why their strength has changed so much. Many people even in China have suggested arresting the two of them and forcing them to find out the results, let alone those guys abroad. Mr. Wang smiled bitterly and said, in the end, Longguo did not agree to this ridiculous proposal, but due to pressure from all aspects, they could not stop them from taking action against Lu Zheng and his wife. Fortunately, the strength of Lu Zheng and his wife has indeed exceeded everyone's expectations. No one can do anything to them without Riyao taking action. In the end, Riao from the Dragon Kingdom spoke up and stopped the situation from getting worse, and then it slowly calmed down. Later, Lu Zheng and his wife chose to join the Longguo official and settled down under the cover of relevant departments. Lu Xiaoqi was stunned for a long time. Good guy, if he, as a time traveler, hadn't firmly believed that he was the protagonist, he would have doubted whether his adoptive parents were the destined children of this world. An ordinary person in his 20s suddenly awakened to extremely powerful innate abilities and became the pinnacle of power under the sun. The most important thing is that this is not just one person, but two people together. Even though Luzaoki was well informed, he could only raise his thumbs up and shout, "My old man is bleeding." But Luzaoki still frowned and asked, "What does this have to do with you leaving us alone?" "Just because of their special characteristics, they ignore us." "Actually, it's not like I'm just letting you go indifferent," Mr. Wang said. Then he sighed and said, "Guess which department they entered after joining the Dragon Kingdom official?" Luzaoki said blankly, "Does this have anything to do with it?" General Wang said, "They entered the Shadow Squadron." The so-called Shadow Team is specifically for the Dragon Kingdom to deal with matters that are difficult to deal with directly, including assassinating important figures in other countries, robbing treasures from various countries, cleaning up traitors and spies, etc. Almost all the Shadow Troopers are anonymous adventurers, with the exception of the Liu family. Because their abilities are so recognizable. Mr. Wang sighed, almost anyone with a discerning eye would know that it was them who did it, so they made no secret of their actions. In order to avoid international disputes, Longguo cannot publicly announce their identities. All actions they take are carried out in their own name. Luzaoki. Everyone thinks they are retaliating because of what happened in the first place. No one knows that under these actions, they actually hide the secret missions of Long Kingdom again and again. Of course, most of the things are indeed tasks issued by the Dragon Kingdom, but there are also a few actions that are their own actions. Mr. Wang paused and continued. There are no more than 10 people in the entire Dragon Kingdom who know their true identities. And I am one of these 10 people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy has bad luck. Chapter 426. So, you just want to tell me that my parents' enemies are everywhere in the world? Luzaoki's eyelids twitched. After Mr. Wang's explanation, he finally figured it out. It turns out that my adoptive parents are not very economical either. After gaining great strength, they also transformed into the Liu family, Long Aotian and his wife. It's okay if others don't provoke him, but once they do, it won't work even if the King of Heaven comes. You have to shed your skin even if you don't die. If you look at them one more time, more than 3 feet of the ground at home will be dug up. Even if a dog passes in front of their house, it will be kicked twice. Not to mention those who yelled and killed them if they disagreed with them. They started by confiscating their homes and exterminating their clans. They had been hunted before and had no choice but to join the relevant departments of the Dragon Kingdom, using official power to hide their whereabouts. After recuperating, they no longer had any worries, so they used the official power of the Dragon Kingdom to unscrupulously retaliate against the forces that had hunted them down. Of course, in the name of carrying out the mission, Longguo turned a blind eye to this. Almost all the powerful forces in the world have been offended by them. Because when they first gained strength, these people wanted to capture them and get the secret of their rapid growth from their mouths. Their arrogant and domineering behavior angered everyone. At that time, countless forces united and issued a kill order against them, with a bounty of trillions of dollars. It's almost catching up with the annual GDP of a developed country. In addition, they also accumulated a lot of treasures in their hands due to force and robbery, which made people extremely envious. Just when the situation was getting worse, the Liu couple suddenly disappeared. Of course, this was not because they were frightened by the terrifying bounty amount, nor was it because they suddenly repented after having done many evil things. Simply because Lu Xianxian is pregnant. A new life is about to be born. The Lu couple wanted to give their baby a good growing environment. They entrusted the Dragon Kingdom officials to arrange a new identity for them. From then on, they changed their minds, kept their names anonymous, and started a new life. Lu Zioki looked at her sister and suddenly felt a little complicated. Without his sister, his adoptive parents would definitely not give up. With their vengeful character, it is estimated that they would still be causing trouble all over the world at this time. Then it would be impossible to meet myself as a baby lying in the wilderness, so that compassion would overflow and she would be taken home and adopted. Even if we meet, we don't rule out the possibility of watching him indifferently. In other words, it was actually my sister who saved my life. It turns out that the fate between the two of us was destined as early as the beginning. The cycles of cause and effect in this world are truly wonderful. Lu Zioki suddenly thought, why did two people with such personalities stand up without hesitation when faced with a disaster, sacrificing their own egos to help the greater self? There is no doubt that it is because there are people in this world that they deserve to care about. It is for the love in their hearts that they are willing to sacrifice themselves to save the world. Not bad. Mr. Wang sighed. It is precisely because of this that after their deaths, Longguo had to find ways to conceal the existence of you two. There is something in Mr. Wang's words, once your relationship with Lu Zheng and his wife is exposed, the trouble will be huge. Lu Zioki. He fell silent for a rare moment. Although he still could not accept that as a descendant of a hero, he had experienced so many years of loneliness, hunger, and cold. But he also undeniably understood that Longguo really couldn't do anything better. Because there are too many secrets involved in them. There are the unsolved mysteries of the adoptive parents becoming stronger, the whereabouts of the various treasures they snatched, plus all kinds of hatred. All this is enough to make people take risks. Although Lu Zioki and Lu Wanyi are completely unaware of this, even if there is a 1 in 10,000 possibility, a trace of clues will attract countless greedy demons. Instead of spending countless energy and resources to protect them, the Dragon Kingdom was in constant fear and guarded against thieves for 1,000 days. It's better to hide them from the beginning so that no one knows about it. And it seems that they don't care about the life and death of the Lu family siblings. But in fact, there are people from relevant departments secretly looking after them all the time. Otherwise, how could Lu Zioki, who was only a few years old, and Lu Wanyi, who was powerless, survive when the Lu couple disappeared? If they hadn't intervened, these two helpless little guys might have been killed by the vicious dogs smelling the fishy smell. Although I don't want to admit it, I still have to say that human trafficking, deprivation, fraud, and various means of extortion have always existed and have been repeatedly banned. Things have gotten better in the past few years. For the next 10 years or so, if there were no adults in the family, it would be like being bullied to death. Thinking about it, with Lu Zioki's sharp personality, she often offended people even in school. As a result, no one ever came to the door. You can't say that it's just because most people in the Dragon Kingdom have good character, right? Of course, they are having such a hard time because, on the one hand, it is difficult for the relevant departments to intervene directly without relevant reasons, and on the other hand, it is also because after such a long time, some people have begun to be negligent and suspected of dereliction of duty. After all, they are just two ordinary orphans, and they spend so much energy to take care of them. With this time, energy, and resources, wouldn't it be nice for me to take a tour of heaven and earth? The identities of Lu Zioki and the others are sealed, and almost no one knows about them. The lower level staff naturally only regard them as ordinary orphans. After listening to Mr. Wang's explanation, Lu Zioki's lips moved, but in the end she said nothing more. He has never been a resentful guy. What he believes in is that what he wants can only be obtained through his own efforts. Whether it's the honor or the pension these adoptive parents bring. If I get it, I am lucky, but if not, it is fate. Lu Zioki could face it calmly. But Mr. Wang felt very guilty. He choked and said, "It is true that the country has failed to treat you all these years. As an insider, I solemnly apologize to you on behalf of the country. Sorry. If Mr. Liu must pursue this matter, I guarantee with my life that I will investigate the ins and outs of everything." At this moment, Lu Wanyi suddenly held Lu Zioqi's hand in hers, looked into his eyes, and slowly shook her head. Her eyes were sparkling, and hearing so many old stories about her parents undoubtedly touched her greatly. The two of them almost had a mental connection, and Lu Zioqi understood in an instant that she had his heart. She didn't want to worry about these things anymore, just let them go with the wind. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 427. Dead silence, an indescribable stillness filled the air. Lu Zioqi looked at her sister with red eyes, finally took a deep breath, and said calmly to the other end of the phone, "Send me the information on the hell copy." "Are you going to Z001? Wang Yanran's voice was quite surprised. At this time, Lu Zioqi was sitting in the city lord's mansion in the Pure Land of Paradise, flipping through a thick stack of information sent by General Wang. He said without raising his head, "What? Is there any problem? Do you know how terrifying the lord of that copy is?" There was a little trembling in Wang Yanran's tone, as if she was thinking of something terrifying. Lu Zioqi stopped flipping through the information. "Do you know this copy?" He tilted his head and looked at Wang Yanran. "Yes, as Rieo, you should have participated in that battle." "No, I wasn't involved." Wang Yanran interrupted Lu Zioqi's words and twitched the corner of her mouth slightly. "The main body participated. It was precisely because of this battle that she suffered injuries that were almost impossible to heal on her own and had to retreat to recuperate. This gave me the opportunity to advance to Sun Yao." Wang Yanran's expression was a bit strange. "Although I inherited most of her memories, I only know a handful of things about that battle. The only thing that is certain is that all the monsters in that copy have abilities similar to immortality. Moreover, their attacks are attached with demonic flames that are difficult to dispel. Not only will the souls of those hit be torn apart, but the injuries will also be almost impossible to heal." As she spoke, she looked at Lu Zioqi, with a hint of worry flashing in her eyes. "Are you sure you want to conquer this dungeon?" Lu Zioqi nodded. He had a reason to go. "Anything else?" Lu Zioqi asked casually. Wang Yanran hesitated for a moment and said slowly, "Although no one has come out of the copy, I can vaguely see some fragments of the future scene. No one in this copy can help you, you can only rely on yourself to be careful." "Oh," Lu Zioqi became a little interested when she said this. She seemed to know something. "Did you see Diji's existence? Or do you mean something else?" "Zisuo." Wang Yanran shook her head and said slowly, "You can't say, you know." Lu Zioqi rolled her eyes. "These prophecies are just so annoying, so mysterious, and they only speak half of what they say." Okay, I got it, Great Master. Is there anything else?" Lu Zioqi lowered her head and continued to flip through the information in her hands. Wang Yanran glanced at him and said, "I'm going out for a while. Oh, by the way, there are also Min Dongmei, Xiao Yan, and the others, coming with me." "What are they doing out there?" Lu Zioqi touched her forehead, feeling a little strange. Usually these guys have to live and die in the Pure Land of Paradise. Why are they all leaving today? "I want a widow." Wang Yanran rolled her eyes. "It's not like I'm being imprisoned by you. Why do I have to report everything to you?" "Lu Zioqi, I'll just keep asking." Seeing that Wang Yanran was unwilling to say more, Lu Zioqi didn't bother to ask, nodded in agreement, and sent them away from the Pure Land with a wave of his hand. After they left, a charming voice sounded from behind Lu Zioqi. "This little girl seems to be quite interested in the master." The owner of the voice chuckled, which made people's hearts itch. He was simply a captivating little goblin. The one who spoke was Megatama, brought back from Fuzu by Luzaoki. To be precise, it should be Tamamo-me that is built on Megatama. Luzaoki ignored him, pretending not to hear anything, and just looked at the information in his hand. Seeing that he didn't respond, Tamamo couldn't help but sigh resentfully and said leisurely, "Master, why are you ignoring me? It really makes me sad." "What do you want me to do?" Luzaoki replied, "besides teasing me every day, what else will you do? I can only listen, not to mention touch, I can't even see. Not even a figure. This vixen has been acting like a monster during this period of time. It is said that after the fall of the Yin-Shang dynasty, Daji fled to Fuzang and transformed into Tamamo. Stand without containing it." Luzaoki almost lost her mind, took out a weapon on the spot and beat the vixen with a club. "Bad master," as he said this, Luzaoki's ears froze slightly, as if some vixen stuck out her tongue and licked it gently. And the best way to overcome temptation is to ignore it? After teasing him a few times, Luzaoki became more sober. Luzaoki. After this vixen signed a contract with him and was nourished by his own magic power, he really took advantage of it. A shallow, seductive voice gasped in his ear, who said, "You can only listen and not touch. She is even linked to Daji in many stories. Yes, I have refined the 5-color sacred stone, and my magic power contains the original power of this world. How can I not help this 1,000-year-old demon?" Luzaoki suddenly understood something. "It's just that after all, I have been a human being for 2 generations, and I know too many gestures. It's understandable that I can't accept this temptation," Luzaoki said angrily. That charming and seductive voice always sounded in Luzaoki's ears from time to time, making him feel itchy but unable to touch it at all. Ouch, the vixen deliberately fell to the ground, looking at his master with a charming face. After all, it's just a piece of Megatama. No matter how beastly Lu is, he can't let this thing go, right? After all this time, he is still a virgin. Hey! You monster, how dare you ruin my moral conduct? At most, it's a bit greedy for Yang. But at any rate, it's considered clean. Tamamo-me blinked and said with a smile, "It wasn't possible before, but suddenly it is possible." As a vixen who brought disaster to the country and people, Luzaoki had already heard the story of Tamamo-me. Tamamo smiled and suddenly floated in front of Luzaoki, after a burst of orchid light. Seeing that Luzaoki couldn't be flirted with, Megatama didn't choose to give up. Luzaoki felt her legs feel heavy, warm, and soft in her arms, and the fragrance came to her nostrils. Awesome! Of course this is just made up. Don't do this to me, tell me what you want to do. Luzaoki also asked her curiously and received a negative answer. Didn't someone say that the best way to overcome fear is to face it? Besides, although Mr. Lu is a bit more carefree. Luzaoki tried her best to calm down and looked at her with a frown. "Can you get out of the Megatama?" He immediately closed the document in his hand and pushed the goblin out. "She is simply an ordinary little monster manifested by the yin energy of heaven and earth." Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 428. Hee, master, don't be so heartless. Tamamo-me covered her mouth with her slender hands and smiled, looking quite charming. "Can't you have some fun with the master if you have nothing to do?" She quietly stood up from the ground and deliberately highlighted her career line to attract Lu's attention. Snort. Use this to test cotters. Which cotter can withstand such a test? Luzaoki, who was upright, naturally did his part and glared with judgmental eyes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many times before he withdrew his gaze with satisfaction. He said with a straight face, "Don't do this to me. Speak directly if you have anything to say, and just stay inside if you have nothing to do. Luzaoki pointed to the Megatama hanging around her neck. Oh my, he is such a heartless and cruel person, Tamamo May pouted, then changed her tone and said, I want to go into the furnace. Luzaoki? Good guy. Sun Wukong was imprisoned in an alchemy furnace for 7749 days because of his desperation. And you are so good, you want to give it to me forcibly? Why did you enter the furnace? Luzaoki said in a strange tone, is that a place where a monster without a body should stay? Oh my! Isn't this just because I don't have a physical body? Tamamo walked forward, took Luzaoki's hand and shook it gently, saying coquettishly, I want to refine a physical body for myself so that I can serve my master. Luzaoki shuddered involuntarily and said quickly, no, 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 I think this is good. You'd better not have a physical body. It's so difficult to deal with without a physical body, but with a physical body, why can't I, Lu, be squeezed dry? Of course, he also knew that this guy's purpose must be more than that simple. Before she told the truth, Luzaoki would not let her succeed so easily. Humph. Sure enough, men don't have any good things. The vixen's tone was filled with resentment. Once you get someone, you no longer know how to cherish it. As she said that, she gently poked Luzaoki's chest with her green-white jade fingers and drew a gentle circle. Luzaoki. Give me less of this. Master, I really can't bear it. If you have something to say, tell me something. If nothing happens. Luzaoki quickly knocked her hand off, and then pointed to the Megatama hanging around her neck. Well, as expected, everything can't be hidden from the clever master. Tamamo May sighed and said charmingly, there is a smell in that furnace that I am very familiar with. It should be the flavor left over from the origin of the world. I want to refine it into my body. She glanced at her master and said, it can make my presence last longer. Luzaoki finally came back to her senses. It turns out that this little goblin was trying to get my 5-color sacred stone. When Luzaoki was refining his own equipment Black Rose, he put a large number of 5-color sacred stones into it. It seems that Black Rose has not been digested completely, and there is a lot of residue left in the furnace. Then I was obsessed with this vixen. Luzaoki thought for a while and shook her head, no need. Then, with Tamamo May's stunned eyes, he grabbed a handful of 5-colored sacred stones and handed them to her. This, you can use it. He didn't want to deliberately get in the way of this goblin. Because he is about to finish the book, he also has some plans to improve his combat power. He was originally confident, but after Wang Yanran's warning, he became a little more cautious and planned to improve his all-round strength and take a further step. Luzaoki, on the other hand, glanced at the man and made him sweat. After learning about the incident involving his adoptive parents, to be honest, his favorable impression of Longuo had indeed declined sharply. Anyway, whoever dares to stop me will end up dead. No one would know that there is equipment that can swallow other equipment to gain attribute growth. Ha ha ha, Lu Rieo was joking. The chat ended with the staff's dry laughter. Although this Megatama doesn't seem to have much effect at present, it can be improved a little bit. Next time, try to kiss her on the lips. After all, this country is very different from the motherland of my previous life. I simply can't understand such an existence. Luzaoki's strength once again improved dramatically. Luzaoki curled her lips and opened the information in her hand again to read. However, all the equipment that was purchased and built became the possession of Black Rose, making an indispensable contribution to enhancing its attributes. After saying that, he came up to Luzaoki and kissed Luzaoki's face with a mua, and said, Master is so kind to the slave. Let's get down to business. However, there was no movement in front of Tamamo. I don't know whether it was because I was pretending to be stupid or because I was in a hurry to refine the 5-color sacred stone and didn't hear it. On the other hand, Luzioki is also using her natural abilities to start studying crazily and improving new skills. No one will ever believe that one person can actually hold so many skills in his skill bar. Feel free to think whatever you want, as long as you don't get in the way. Luzioki touched her cheek, which had been kissed by Tamamo, and couldn't help but muttered, "How can a kiss on the cheek be considered a thank you?" So Luzioki didn't bother to explain. In the next few days, Luzioki became busy. The vixen accepted the super mythical material with bright eyes, smiled, and said sweetly, "Thank you, master." Such as special skills to deal with various situations, passive skills that are effective at any time, attack skills to enrich one's combat methods, etc., none of them are missed. On the one hand, he frantically purchased all kinds of equipment, and even spent his own energy to use the furnace to refine and build equipment. If it weren't for the fact that all her ties were with this country, Luzioki wouldn't even want to have anything to do with them. After being fully armed, he continued to use the support of the Dragon Kingdom and the large amount of resources he had obtained previously. He swept almost all the skills he valued and turned them into part of the skill bar. Don't ask. If you ask, you are planning to rebel. This abnormal behavior also attracted the attention of the relevant departments, who even made a special trip to inquire about his intentions in a roundabout way. I have a question for everyone. Do you want to see Luzioki's new skills? If so, I will release Luzioki's skills in the next chapter. If not, just skip to the next chapter. In the end, the people of Longguo still don't know what Luzioki used these equipment and skills for. Even his cultivation has improved slightly. As he said that, he took the 5-color sacred stone and turned it into a faint blue light and penetrated into the Megatama. Finally, he was fully prepared to conquer the new copy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 429. This time, Luzioki's attributes have been greatly enhanced in all aspects. Current skills panel. 10,000 swords returned to the sect has been upgraded to swords out without self, SSS rating, SS add 1. Level, upward arrow. With one sword strike, I am invincible. All sword skills on the scene that are lower than the skill rating will be controlled by the releaser. The sword intention is converted into a tribulation breaking sword, which envelops the whole body. Attacks with a sword intention value lower than that will be controlled by the user. Unable to cause damage to the user, the sword intent value equivalent to 1/10 of the damage will be deducted. The tribulation Jianlan will automatically cause damage to surrounding monsters. The damage received by ordinary monsters is increased by 1000%, and the damage received by elite monsters is increased by 800%. The boss monsters are increased by 500%, and the lord monsters are increased by 300%. After turning on the sword out of self, 1000 sword intention points will be consumed every second to maintain the Jianlan breaking the tribulation. The user can transform into the Jianlan breaking the tribulation to move and attack freely. The longer it lasts, the damage of Jian Chuyevo will be higher until the sword intention is exhausted. During the process of releasing Jian Chuyevo, the sword intention will also accumulate at a rate of 1500 points per second until it reaches the upper limit. The person killed by Jian Chuyevo will the target will additionally increase the upper limit of sword intent. The current sword intent value is 948750/948750, inherited the superimposed sword intent of Wanjian Gazong. Characteristics: armor breaking, quick and deliberate, critical strike. Consumption, mana 4 million, lower limit. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Armor break, when attacking the target, reduce all enemy armor defense and add vulnerability status. Quick determination, the accumulation speed of sword intention is increased by 1000%, and reaches 3000% after the sword is released without self. Critical hit, it has a beheading effect on targets with blood volume below 80%. Forced knife vibration rightward arrow killing intention countermeasure SSS rating, SS add 1. Level, upward arrow. Automatically cast when there is a target with killing intent around you, making a blocking and parrying gesture, forcing the opponent to enter a judgment state. If the opponent fails to judge, he will be attracted to the caster's attack, and any attacks cast by the target will all attack skills are converted into 300% times the damage and returned in full. If the judgment is successful, the opponent will be forced into a dazed state and all spell casting will be interrupted. After the block is completed, the lost energy and blood will be converted into real damage to all targets. Fight back. Characteristics: unloading, posture maintenance, skill switching. Consumption, 800,000 mana, lower limit. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Unloading force, 100% success when blocking. Posture maintenance, maintaining the blocking posture can continue to reduce subsequent attacks. It can be released on multiple targets, no upper limit, for 30 seconds, and the ultimate hegemony can be activated when counter-attacking. Skill switching, when other skills are being released, you can cancel the release action and return 100% of the consumption, and use murderous counter-attack instead. After the counter-attack is completed, you can automatically switch back to the previously released skill, save skill charging and forward swing. Power of the Four Extremes rightward arrow Hunyuan Wajii SSS rating, SS add 1. Level, upward arrow. After being turned on, it has 80% of all the abilities of the original four forms. When a certain form is designated as the main form, the abilities of that form will be strengthened, while the abilities of other forms will be reduced to 50% of the original ones. The main form can be switched freely. Enhancement: Earth form, defense is increased by 50,000%, health is increased by 20,000%, and the corresponding resistance is permanently increased by 5 points after each recovery from damage. Characteristics: Earth protection, power of earth veins, easy to shake mountains but difficult to shake mountains. Strengthen, wind form, gain the ability to break through the air, increase speed by 50,000%, increase attack by 2,000%, and permanently increase the hit by 2 points after each attack on the target. Characteristics: wind and thunder, wind flow, disintegration. Strengthening, water form, increase blood and vitality by 30,000%, increase mental and physical strength by 2,000%, and increase all recovery abilities by 5,000%. After each consumption, the recovery ability is permanently increased by 5 points, applicable to any consumption. Characteristics: overcoming hardness with softness, formless and formless, undercurrent surging. Enhanced, fire form, damage increased by 8,000%, attack penetration increased by 60%, causing an explosion after the target dies. The explosion will produce indelible burning flames to attack the surrounding targets. If the target affected by the explosion dies, an explosion will occur. A series of explosions, and killing the target will permanently increase the own attack by 3 points. It will be invalid if there is a difference of 2 major realms. Characteristics: mana burning, potential explosion, rebirth from the ashes. Consumption: 1 million physical and mental points each, fixed. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. The shape of the Earth. Earth Guardian, refresh a shield for yourself every minute that can absorb 100% of your health damage. This shield can be stacked 5 times. Power of ley lines, the attack is accompanied by the power of ley lines. When using grabbing skills, the judgment is increased by an additional 80%, the damage is increased by 80%, and the range is increased by 80%. After the attack, the opponent will be in a defeated state and unable to move. It is easy to shake a mountain, but it is difficult to shake a mountain, absorb attacks below 1000% of one's own defense and convert them into one's own energy and blood. Form of wind. Wind and thunder entrainment. The power of wind wraps around one's body to induce the power of thunder to follow. The power of wind and thunder superimposes on each other, increasing the power. Wind flow method. You can turn into the wind and move quickly, ignoring obstacles, and save all damage received while moving. Cooling time. Disintegration. Each attack has a 50% chance of causing things to collapse. Water form. Use softness to overcome strength. 90% of attacks will be returned to the opponent, maximum chance achieved when the two are of equal strength. Intangible and formless. The higher the attack, the greater the damage reduced. The upper limit of the maximum proportion is 99%, and the lower limit is 80%. Undercurrent. Each attack will superimpose hidden damage in the enemy's body. When actively detonated, each hidden damage can cause 10% of the enemy's upper limit of health as true damage. Form of fire. Mana burning. When attacking an enemy, it will burn 20% of his mana, physical energy/mental energy, whichever is the highest, and cause an equal amount of true damage. Potential burst. Stimulate your potential to greatly increase your damage. The longer it lasts, the higher the damage will be. After it ends, you will be in a weak state for a longer time. You will not be able to enter the form of fire in the weak state. Resurrection from the ashes. Being killed in this form will consume mana, mental/physical, to resurrect at full state, but the consumed mana, mental/physical, will not be restored until the form continues to end. Cooling time. Stars shining rightward arrow. Star prayer. SSS rating, SS add 1. Level, upward arrow. Use the power of starlight to pray for the target, restore all injuries to all targets, and restore 10% of the opponent's health and mana every minute for the next 30 minutes. Features: Starlight Power, Mana Surge, Galaxy Tide. Consumption: 2 million mana. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Starlight Power, recover an additional 80% of the target's consumption. Mana Surge, each time healing is completed, own mana is immediately restored to 100%, and an additional 20% is restored every minute for 60 minutes. Let me tell you first, this is what you want to see, don't call me stupid. Mana Stealing, using the skill after switching attributes to attack the enemy will steal 10% minus 30% of the enemy's mana. The specific effect has been mentioned before in chapter 402, so no additional space will be occupied here. Skill attribute bonuses can be freely switched. For example, a skill that adds physical damage can be switched to a spell damage bonus, and a skill with strong magic power can be changed to an attack type. The skill damage type can be switched, meaning that the skill that originally caused physical damage, switch to spell damage. Each time you switch a skill, you will get an additional 10% damage bonus, which will take effect when released, meaning that the original skill causes 100% physical damage, and you cast ULEGXI and flow on the skill and then release the skill, it can cause 110% spell damage, and then cast it again and it becomes 120% physical damage. This is repeated and superimposed, with no upper limit. It can be effective for multiple skills at the same time. This is what the original skills will look like after they are upgraded. The next chapter will be Luzioki's new skills, including passive and active. Slow healing, teammates blessed with Guardian Angel can speed up their own injury recovery. Features detailed explanation. Holy Protection rightward arrow Oracle Baptism rating, SSS, SS add 1. Features: Slow healing, Weapon Blessing, Badge of Honor. Consumption, 800,000 mana. Discharge, the enemy after grabbing will lose resistance and reduce all attributes of the enemy by 75%. Force the target to be grabbed and thrown violently. Each attack will cause the enemy to suffer additional damage equal to 80% of its own weight and the releaser's weight. The number of attack steps can be infinitely superimposed. Mana will continue to be consumed. This skill is released when the opponent uses the grabbing skill. It will enter the judgment mode. If the weight is higher than the opponent's, the judgment will be increased by an additional 50%. The above weight calculation includes the package weight. Irashery, the first attack on the enemy after switching attributes, will result in a 100% critical hit, and all critical hit damage will be converted into real damage that ignores defense. Emblem of Honor, during the duration of the skill, the damage caused by the blessed target to the enemy will also be converted into 20% of the healing amount to restore the injury of the blessed target. Assault, the grabbing distance is increased by 5000%, and the target can still be released successfully when the target is ungrabbable. The skill form will be changed. Adaptive attack, after attacking the enemy after converting the skill attribute, the attack will automatically be converted into the overpowering attribute type. For example, if the opponent is dark, it will be converted into the sacred attribute that can overpower darkness. If it is fire, it will be converted into overpowering fire type. Ice properties. Characteristics: stealing spells, Lankai, adaptive damage. Cooldown dash. Cooldown dash. Level, upward arrow. Consumption, 500,000 mana. Attribute conversion, rightward arrow. Agakuji Shinryu rating, SSS, SS add 1. Weapon blessing, during the duration of the skill, the blessed target's weapon will have sacred attributes and its attack will be increased. Galaxy Tide, when releasing the skill, it cannot be disturbed or interrupted, and the designated target cannot be attacked. After releasing, an additional 30% minus 80% attribute bonus will be obtained, which will last until the end of the treatment. The brighter the starlight, the better the treatment effect. Level, upward arrow. Characteristics: unloading power, strong attack, triple power. Features: detailed explanation. In addition, there are also passives such as Heaven's Son, all things are allowed, flying swordsmanship, Hell's Curse, extreme swordsmanship, God's left hand, 100 deaths unexplainable, etc. that have not changed. So just mention it here. Consumption, 4 million mana. Features: detailed explanation. Arashi Mountain, rightward arrow. Infinity Hell Bliss rating, SSS, SS add 1. Cooldown dash. Destroying Illusion Dharma I, introduced in chapter 380, I won't go into details about the same reason. Level, upward arrow. Sandy Jin, after the grab judgment is successful, you will enter an invincible state, until the skill action is completed, and each attack will cause the opponent to be attacked 3 times, the first time is 100%, the second time is 150%, the third time is 200%, the skill effects are superimposed, including the unloading and power attack characteristics. The unloading algorithm is multiplication. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 430. Free Ultimate Intention Skill SSS and rating, converted into an instinctive passive skill. Develop your own potential to the extreme, and be able to make the best response to attacks without thinking. A simple understanding is to hire a substitute. No matter what kind of blow you receive, you can exert 100% of your strength, quite so immune to all negative status. Characteristics: perfect ultimate intention Kung Fu, combat intuition, potential explosion. Perfect ultimate intention Kung Fu, immune to restrictions such as seals, restraints, and freezing. Combat intuition, can predict the enemy's attack and detect the opponent's weaknesses. Potential explosion, when you are hit to the point of falling into unconsciousness, you will enter #UN% state. Historical transformation method SSS and rating, converted into an instinctive passive skill. It is colorless, formless, and selfless, and has no birth, no death, no purity, no dirt, so it has great freedom. Once it has gained great freedom, all the means in the world are at your fingertips. Ahem, the top is for cups, the bottom is in human language. When you are not taking action, you are in an absolutely invincible state, do not account for cause and effect, and the natural laws such as time and aging cannot be ignored when you don't want to see the other party. No matter it is, no one can see the true master, and all the magic spells in the world can be fully mastered as long as they have been used in front of you. Characteristic. There is also a characteristic of Der, just 2 words in capital letters, invincible. The ultimate intention of power SSS and rating, converted into an instinctive passive skill. As time goes by, your own attributes will permanently increase by 5% on the original basis every day. Characteristics: unparalleled strength, perfect control, golden skin. Unrivaled strength, extreme strength can break all restrictions, including rules. Overlord, the damage caused to enemies under abnormal conditions is doubled. For each additional abnormal condition, the damage is increased by 50% on the original basis. This means 100% damage to normal enemies, 200% damage to enemies with an abnormal state, and an additional 50% damage increase for each additional abnormal state, with no upper limit. Exploration, automatically learn the method of cracking. The above are Lou's newly learned skills, all of them are filled up in order to save space. I have omitted many things, such as star ratings and so on. To be honest, the later the data is, the more difficult it becomes to write, such as damage values and mana consumption, something like that, so I won't write it anymore, I'll do it manually. Magic mark, enemies attacked by you will be marked with magic power, and will suffer real damage equal to the mana consumed when you cast the skill. Elemental stacking, each additional attack of a new element on the enemy will receive a 50% damage bonus. Perfect control, you can use your powers perfectly. Maintain strength while facing weakness. When faced with enemies with lower attributes than one's own, the damage caused will be converted into real damage. Golden skin and jade skin, your muscles are like gold and your skin is like white jade, which gives you an additional 90% spell resistance, and your own mana usage is increased by 5000%. A simple understanding is that spell damage is reduced by 90%, and 1 mana is used as 50 points. In the next 600 minutes after release, everything will be invisible to you, including traps, invisibility, illusions, and even potential dangers. Characteristics: invulnerable to all poisons, invincible to true spirits, curse rebound. Features: Hell's Hand, Soul Eater, multicasting. Relieves all targets' negative status after release, and makes them immune to all abnormal damage for the next 300 minutes. Casting this skill will consume 99% of one's health and make oneself invincible for 10 seconds. When attacking the enemy, it will cause 200% additional damage and obtain a healing effect equal to the damage. The overflowing healing effect will be converted into the same amount. Numerical shield, at the same time, all of its own skills are converted into group attack skills, and are 100% equipped with explosion, demon breaking, armor-piercing properties, and abnormal effects such as burning, poisoning, chaos, dizziness, coma, and fright. Multicast, can be released on multiple targets at the same time. Release consumes additional mana. Curse reflection, during the duration of the skill, the target receiving the buff will reflect the curse he received on the person who cast the curse. Prediction, being able to perceive what will happen in the next period of time. Resonance, the effects of the skill and skills of the same type can be superimposed, and the effect is increased by 500%. Characteristics: resonance, exploration, prediction. Release the skill on the designated target, causing the opponent to enter a judgment state. If the judgment fails, it will be directly erased. If the judgment is successful, the opponent's all attributes will be weakened by 50% for 900 minutes. Jean Lejeune, when attacking the same enemy, the damage of the next attack will be increased by 20%, infinite stacking. Invulnerable to all poisons, the blessed object permanently gains invulnerability to all poisons. Prayer of Wachan SSS rating, SS Add 1, active skill. Hand of Hell, the judgment mechanism is increased by an additional 50%. Forbidden Spell Elemental Burst SSS rating, SS Add 1, active skill. Master the power of the four initial elements, wantonly disrupt their order, cause supreme disasters, and even destroy and reorganize the entire world. Characteristics: element superposition, magic imprint, element annihilation. Characteristics: slaying decisively, holding strong against weak, dominating. Elemental annihilation: the elements that are completely disrupted will return to nothingness, and all targets in this range will be obliterated. Soul Eater: after erasing the target, it will devour the opponent's soul. Finger of Death SSS rating, SS Add 1, active skill. True Spirit Imbued: during the duration of the skill, the target that gains the buff will be True Spirit Immortal and will not fall into disorder. Insight SSS rating, SS Add 1, active skill. The total number of words in the 2 pages exceeds 5,000, which is quite a lot. I am not short, Extermination SSS rating, SS Add 1, active skill.